Good morning,
Good
Michelle.
morning, everyone. How are you guys doing today?
We are well. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, we have with us now, I keep calling you Dr. Michelle Allison in my mind, so I have a feeling that is something to come.
She's been referred to as a prophet on this program.
Or
And it's not-
dyslexic, remember?
But not being dyslexic, but somebody, one or two different hosts has come to the program and referred to you as prophetess.
Yes. Every now and then
Yes.
I say something.
And it is prophetic
but
in
I
nature.
keep thinking, Dr. Michelle Allison, but that is
Not
to come.
there yet.
That
You're
is to
getting
come.
there though.
And it's only because you have not written the paper. But in terms of your experience, how long a teacher?
Well, I've been in the education system close to 29 years.
I love it close to.
That means she's still very
That
young.
includes her years as a student
No, not at all.
That means she's still very young.
from Shibon.
From Shibon. I
Yes.
don't know if you have a history of teaching in your family.
Yes, my aunt was a math professor, math teacher actually at Merle Grove.
Okay.
And she's Will L. Henry.
Yes.
There's actually a building in her name at that institution at
you've
this time.
visited? Okay.
I have not this visit, but before. She was very influential in my life as to provide me the foundations for being a great mathematician.
Oh, you love math.
I do enjoy math.
You
That
know-
was something that was established in our family that we had no choice but to learn math.
Okay. And I'm assuming that a great relationship with your dad who kind of influenced you. that way.
Correct.
You
Yes.
know, there's a study that has said that females who have great relationships with their dad go on to do well in the mathematical subjects like math and physics and chemistry.
Numeracy. Yeah.
Yes. I saw that and I was
Yes.
like, whoa, my daughter
You're-
loves math.
All right,
Yeah.
so you're causing a few persons now to reflect on their
The
relationship with their fathers.
Yes,
and say,
yes.
that's why.
That's the reason why, because they don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Numeracy.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. But back to Michelle.
Yes, but that was a part. We have to get who Michelle is so we can understand.
There's a lot to Michelle.
Oh, wow. Yes.
How long have you lived outside of Jamaica?
I'm going to say close to maybe about 32, 33 years, I think.
Okay.
I think. Yes.
So pretty much you kind of entered the education system.
right when I got in.
Yeah.
Yes.
You got in. So where did you go to school here? It seems
I'm a
like
Wilmarian.
okay, Agua it is.
Yes, sir.
My
And then I
sisters
spent
all
one.
went to Wolmer's.
Yes, and then I spent 1 year at St. Andrews. My
St.
last.
St. Andrews.
St. Andrews.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes.
So I have connections here. All my sisters went to Wolmer's, and my daughter went to St. Andrews. And my mom would have gotten there, but you know, when she was younger, you have to have a scholarship to go. And it's interesting just about, and when my daughter was graduating from St. Andrews, my mom says, did you know that I got a scholarship here to go to that school? And I couldn't take it up because my parents couldn't afford for me to go there. That was before Norman Manley did what he did.
Public schools.
In terms
Yes.
of public school. So
Yes.
connection
My
there.
prior sisters, they went to Wilmer's, or they're also Wilmarians, and it was a boarding school at that time.
that's a long time.
The idea of boarding schools, especially, so did they live on campus?
Yes, they did.
It was a requirement that
Correct.
you bring the ladies in and,
Correct.
and
At
train
that
them.
time.
All right. While the royals are visiting, I won't even talk about
Boarding school.
what happens in boarding schools that are patterned off English public
Grammar
schools.
schools,
And
grammar
yes,
schools,
I want to take us a little closer to home.
Okay.
I was, of course, the invitation to join us this morning took place in a way more social setting.
You was eating food
But
and enjoying yourself.
Absolutely. But I was just intrigued by so many of the discussions I've had with Michelle touching on how education services are delivered in her adoptive country and, doing a little compare and contrast, but not harmfully so, wanting to see what is happening where she is that could be of use to Jamaica. So I sent you a few questions last night because I didn't want to take you completely by surprise.
You're still taking me by surprise. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to review them. So let me just be forthright with that.
See, going on. You okay. All right.
I'm good to go.
Okay.
Good to go. All right.
All right. Well, we're
As best as I can.
All right. So, well, then I'll start with
the softball one.
With the soft one. Let me find it.
What has been your experience? You were educated in Jamaica.
Correct.
In terms of our high school system.
Correct.
You've taught in
only in the U.S.
Okay.
Yes.
You mean what age groups?
I've only done elementary, so I do from pre-K, from the 3-year-olds right up to 11-year-olds.
Okay.
That's the perfect age.
That's a formative year.
That is correct.
Years. Yeah. Yeah. So you've been shaping young American minds. So I started with a very gentle topic.
Sure.
In Jamaica, under our constitution, there is a provision for children to receive state-funded education up to about age 12. Pastor tells me, because it's to all age.
Constitution, yeah. All
That's it.
Okay.
Which. This is from 1962, so you can imagine one didn't really see how useful and a Jamaican educated beyond the age of 12 could be. What would they do with that education?
Right.
Just the same way I think at one time the question would have been asked, what would women do with education? So we have state-funded education up to age 12 or thereabouts. What applies in your school environment?
The initial age would be age 6. They'll have to be, depending on the birth date, the expectation is that from age 6, it's compulsory. It's required that you're in school. There is a clause. I live in Florida, so we remember they go by state governing rules. Yeah. So each state has their own provision, and within Florida, by the age of 16, some know this, that they have to, if they wish to withdraw from school, a 16-year-old can withdraw from school without the parents' consent.
Wow.
Okay, so once they get to that age, they can submit their documentation, prove that they no longer wish to stay in high school, and they are dismissed. But the typical age would be up to 12th grade.
And that is up
what
to
age is that in 12th grade?
That would be 18.
Okay, that's interesting.
And this is for state-funded
Correct.
education, right? But you have a certain freedom from age 16.
Yes, from 16 onward, yes. Yeah. That is optional for the student. A lot of parents, I don't think, are aware of that, but it is there.
Not something you emphasize
Correct.
on the first day of school. And remember now, when you get to 16,
you can decide whether you want to stay
I wonder what such a right would do in Jamaica. Would persons voluntarily, you think, elect to remove themselves from school at age 16?
What are they going to do?
Well, that is the great question, but sometimes a student figures that, they don't see the significance or the value in them remaining, or unfortunately they're not being they're not successful in school, and
they're
frustrated. Correct.
Yes.
So
have you seen much of that? Students voluntarily
I do know of
themselves?
one or two cases of my own students who have opted to do that, with parents coming back and asking me to assist. But unfortunately, it is written that they have that option, and the parent
fundamental rights and freedoms.
Correct.
Once they exercise it.
Correct.
Yeah.
The parent is aware of it, so please understand that they're not done without the knowledge
of the parent.
But the child at that point can choose to opt.
Okay. All right.
All right. We're gonna take a short break at this point, and then we'll be right back with Michelle. All right, welcome back. Our guest today is Michelle Allison. I think Pastor Percival just talked every good stuff out of her in the short break. I am just hoping she left something for you.
I did not. Yeah.
Our listeners. What did you leave?
Everything. Just getting to
he was nonstop, actually. He kept going.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'd sent a question. You haven't seen them, so it doesn't really matter. School boards in Jamaica are populated with political appointees. And the Ministry of Education exercises centralized authority over policy and curriculum.
Okay.
That's the format here. What applies in your school district?
I live in the area of Broward County, so those are elected officials.
Aha. Elected by the people?
Correct.
How does that work? You got to say a little bit more about that. They campaign?
They campaign.
Put out their manifesto, what they want to see?
Correct.
Oh, that's just brilliant.
Yes, and they are voted in. And if they so wish to...
You're an elected official.
No. As principal, we are not elected.
Oh.
We are appointed. So we're appointed by the school board. The school board are elected officials. And so they are the governing body that oversees the and oversees the procedures and provides the directives as to how we
the policy for the particular
correct.
School.
That is correct. And then we have a superintendent who reports to the school board, and under that, then everything else is structured under him or her who is elected or selected for that position.
So the superintendent is not elected; they're selected.
They're selected.
Oh,
The board.
The board
The
selects.
board selects a superintendent.
Correct.
So you have a school board that runs a grouping of schools, or just that school?
Oh no, it is the 6th largest district in the United States.
Okay, so each school has a
Principal.
right.
And then over that, there are established groups of directors.
Yes.
And then they are overseen by the superintendent. So, and the superintendent reports to the school board.
So here in Jamaica, school boards are individualized.
Political appointees?
No. Individualized to the school. What I'm hearing you saying that the school board is over a group of schools. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Oh, so that's a difference.
That's another difference too.
Yeah.
Correct.
So you get the opportunity to have policy and planning proceed from I'm going to say statewide, but a district-wide perspective.
It's district. It is district.
A district-wide perspective. So whatever it is that you want to see emerge out of your schools, you elect persons for the board who will carry that message.
That is correct, but it must be consistent with the Florida state statutes.
Yes.
So that means
that's a difference for us.
that's a major
Jamaica.
difference.
That's a
That
major
means
difference.
the governor would impact what happens at the school board in terms of policy.
It depends on how it is set up.
Okay.
So, our governor, depending on what the issues, could remove, someone
From the school board?
from the school board if they're inappropriate. But there's some rules and regulations
Naturally,
regarding
yes.
that and how the school board itself was set up and determined.
Okay.
So, but he can appoint someone if someone is removed. If
Okay.
it's not in the electoral
Season.
season.
Yes.
Okay, that's
But
interesting.
The reason I made mention of it is because the most recent report on transformation of the education system in Jamaica spoke about greater stakeholder input in the running of the schools and the setting of policy and so on. And one point that came up for mention was school boards.
Right.
How are these boards selected and so on? And so I was curious to see that
Yes.
it's
from the people.
It's from the people. Which
Correct.
That was the point. All right.
But just to explore that issue, because I've sat on a school board, that was interesting to know.
Did you campaign to get on that board?
I campaigned because I was a PTA president in the sense of that, But that school board under our Education Act has, if it is government, then the government appoints. But even with that, there are some posts that are people-centered, meaning the staffing, you have a teacher rep, you have the students sit on the school board, that's the elected, whether it is the president or the student council, the PTA. In some schools, you have a whole past students association. So those are posts that are the persons. And then because if it's owned by the church, then the board chair is somebody who the church appoints, and then you have different people. So I found that interesting in regards to the difference, yeah.
So that's more of a decentralization of governance.
Yeah.
But within the school board itself, how it's set up, it is by the district. So we have the school board itself that operates several hundred schools, and that's
Okay.
from elementary to middle and to high.
Okay.
All right, and then the superintendent oversees all of those schools.
Okay.
All right, so and then the school board is the governing body. So underneath that would be the principals who are now a part of that structure.
Okay.
And within that structure, the principals now will have their PTAs, other, influence the student, government, and
Right.
all of those pieces will be a part of that level
Okay.
at the
it's a-
school level.
So that's a totally different. Yeah.
Yes, because I'm sensing that once you get that community input in how policy is set for the group of schools,
Right.
it then trickles down through the superintendent to the principal, and the principal has a certain degree of autonomy in making sure
Correct.
that the house runs in accordance
Correct.
with the rules.
Correct.
So you wouldn't have principals being frustrated on the ground because they don't have the authority or the resources to implement strategies that are in alignment with the policy.
There's still some frustration.
There's no,
No, I'm just saying.
Yes,
they're
but
always
there's
in-
also a
Yeah.
grassroots too. Please understand that at that level of the school itself, there are different ad hoc groups that are able to influence from the bottom
from
up.
the bottom up.
Okay, so we have, groups that are, for ESC, which is, where special needs students.
Okay.
You have groups who are maybe multicultural issues. You could have, groups where they want to hear, they want to see different things being placed in the school. So from the PTSA or PTSO boards, they can move that issue from the grassroots level right up to
Right
the
up,
top.
right.
You know.
And then I assume that when it comes around to election time
Those
for
are
the,
what
for the
comes in.
board,
Which is what happened
absolutely.
in Virginia.
So the pressure the pressure comes.
From top and bottom.
Top and
and
bottom.
sometimes we
To-
do see policies
Yes.
made directly from those.
And then it gives you, I think, very fertile soil for activism.
Correct.
There
Because
is.
you know
There
that
is.
there will be a point when, if you put in the necessary effort from the ground, you can see it come to fruition. It's time
Correct.
for a
Uh,
break.
th- th-
All right,
there-
let's
there
take a
is-
break, please. When we get back, I'm going to invite Michelle to speak on her experience as to the critical success factor in achieving the goal of well-educated and socially conscious citizens. What is that secret sauce? Please stay with us. We'll be right back. Good morning and welcome back. I have Michelle to myself for a few minutes because Pastor Percival has taken a refreshment break. We've introduced that now. And I want to read something to you. It is an extract from the introduction of the Paterson report, which is the latest report we have on transforming Jamaica's education system. The report acknowledged that Jamaica follows UNESCO's declaration that children do not only have the right to be in school, but also to learn while there and to emerge with the skills they need to find secure, well-paid work. The pursuit of this fundamental right animates the work and recommendations of this report. Now, of course, I read that and my spirit is immediately offended. I'm like, what? I didn't leave school just so I could find secure, well-paid work. I left school so I could participate in creating an economy that can both employ others and provide me with, a secure income. Way longer than what would be required for the UNESCO declaration. But I wanted to zero in on this idea that for Jamaica, with its post-colonial history and history of slavery and so on, we want to educate in a different direction, not for persons to come out and be employees, but
Okay.
to come out with the ability to work in partnership with others and create an economy that can support, a decent lifestyle. Let's put it that way. So I'm curious.
Okay.
If you could identify a principle that drives the objective of education in your school district, what would you say it is?
I think it would be to empower young people to be the best that they can be. And so there is a uniformed discussion or emphasis based on providing many different aspects to learning that can meet the needs of the student. And the philosophy is to garner that interest as early as we can and develop them so that they can be the best. So whether you wish to go into the occupation of being a lawyer, a doctor, or you want to be a more vocational, there are different aspects to providing education, to provide support, to provide all the different things that are needed so that that student can be the best that they can be.
So it's very personal. It's more people oriented than
It is extremely people oriented.
Nationalistic in terms of what does the state want from the citizen. It is more developing the citizen so that they can give and participate as they see fit.
Correct.
Is that
it's a struggle. I mean, it's some people may say, is that realistic? But I do see when my teachers come to school, there is an earnest attempt to make sure that they are meeting the needs of their students. There is a direct passion to ensure that whatever that child's interest is, that they are trying to get them on that path to learning. And they have to, one, value the education that they're given. There is a level of taking it for granted because so much is given to them. When I compare it to what we received here in Jamaica, we don't take our education for granted, at least when I grew up here.
That's true.
It was instilled in us how of much value it would be to your future. And our goal then is to instill that in our students at my location. The challenges that we see are varied. We do see things such as the socioeconomic disadvantages that play itself out and does not offer a level playing field to many of our boys and girls who are coming in, and trying to get that to be a level playing field that all students can feel accepted and welcomed. Therefore, at that elementary level, the struggle is to just get everyone to
interested in their education.
Correct.
And value what it will do for them.
Correct.
But then it begs the question, how do the children formulate their desires, their needs for education? Is that coming from the parents? I mean,
I'm a strong believer that it has to come from the home.
Yeah.
It has to be. That is your first place of learning.
So remember, you have a secret sauce question to answer. As she said home, it reminded me.
So, I have seen hundreds of students come through, and it has always shown that the parental support that is given to a child makes a huge difference to the trajectory as to where they're going. And if your education is supported, it provides a wonderful avenue in which to grow or to leap from, so that whatever the teachers are providing in the classroom, it is supported, and it provides the framework in which you're now going to move to the middle and to those tertiary levels.
Okay.
So what in your experience is the secret sauce to achieving success?
Before you
Yes.
go to the secret sauce
Yes.
question, can you describe the socio-economic background of your students in your school?
Okay.
You're in Fort Lauderdale.
Sure.
The
So I cannot
average
be
student.
specific, but I can be
Your school.
sure. So remember, Broward County is a very large county in itself, and therefore, it depending on where you are, okay, the demographics will change. Okay. So I am situated on the east side of the county, and within that sector, we have my school has 50% Hispanics.
Wow.
Yes.
Habla español?
Yes, 50%. And then
She speaks at 50%.
and then I have the other quarter would be whites, and the other quarter would be blacks,
Okay.
which would be mixed. You have, Caribbean, you have, multiracial. They'll be grouped in that.
And I know for the Hispanic, the Latin American, they are strong on family.
They're strong on what?
Family.
Correct.
In that area.
But it depends. You have to also family, yes, but they're blue collared workers. So many of them are really at work.
The time.
So that they're spending their time just trying to make ends meet.
Okay.
So 2 or 3 jobs are being held down just to make sure that the family can have a roof over their head. So when they walk into school, many of them have never seen the alphabet before. They have no knowledge of what the letter names and sounds will be. So it takes a great
early childhood education.
None.
Because I picked up from what you said that state education would typically start at 6.
6.
So whatever happens between 0 and 6 is
Yes.
on mommy's dime.
Correct.
Okay.
So
you start with nothing and you.
I wouldn't say I would start with nothing. Not that.
But
Not
you
is
can.
not. You can.
It can be that
Yeah.
way.
So in some cases you are finding that the struggle is to get them up to where they need to be. And remember, at 6, that's a long time. So to just
0 to 5.
0 to 5. So that's a lot of learning lost there.
Okay.
So it is now on the teachers to really do miracles to get them up to par where they need to be. Because remember, at 3rd grade is the retention year where students are held back if they're not meeting proficiency.
Okay.
So you're talking grade 3 here,
Yes, right.
where they're told you are failing.
Okay, so you have a whole lot of work.
Correct.
And so what you're saying is that what drives your process is the support from the home.
It is definitely support from the home. I'm a firm believer that I have seen with my own eyes that students who have been supported, even if the parent is not literate, but they're able to put those value systems in place. That is a core piece to not 100% proof, but to provide the best foundation for learning.
Okay.
So remember, 3rd grade is our retention year. There are no ifs or buts about it. And that means that students must meet a level of proficiency. What does proficiency mean? Proficiency doesn't mean that you are passing. Proficiency means that you are at a point that we're able to move you to the next grade level. There's a lot of misconception about that. And sometimes moving you to the next grade level is just adequate progress. Adequate progress could be 1 year behind.
Okay.
See where I'm going with that?
Yeah.
So you don't have to pass.
What you call pass.
Right.
What we call
achieve
pass.
a grade above an average point.
Correct.
I
Correct.
see.
So you can say my child has moved on to the next grade level, but you need to check to see
Where
how
they started.
Correct.
Okay. So, but that's true because with the intervention that we're doing in this community,
Yes.
one of the challenges was that you had children who were like in grade 4, 5,
Grade 6, ready to.
who were at pre-K level in terms of their reading.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's
So we
interesting.
still have those challenges too.
Okay.
Yeah, I may have a 5th grader and they're still at the pre-K level.
Wow. So, and the question is, as a principal, it means you have committed staff. People are committed to
Oh,
the
definitely.
task.
Teachers don't get into this for the money. I'm sorry. They get into this because they have a core belief that they can make a difference.
Okay. And so that's a starting value.
They
Spoke
have
about
to-
values. So there are values that are important in the teacher,
Correct.
but values that are important in the parent.
Correct.
So what are some of those values? Not for the teacher, but for the parents that you see has helped the process of education for you.
It's not a one size fits all.
Okay.
Okay.
Just give up some of
You
them.
have to have a family unit that values the education and values and respects the educational process
Okay.
and respects the teacher.
Okay.
If you are within a setting and you have a parent who says you don't have to do your homework, go to bed, or the parent says, I don't like that teacher. You have already set up that child to have indifference towards that classroom,
Okay.
towards the setting. The support systems have to be very deliberate. You have to ensure that the child understands that there's no space between you and me, the teacher. And that if there's going to be a discussion about something that went down in that classroom, have it away from the student.
Okay.
So the student understands that the mom and the teacher are on, or dad are on the same page.
Same choir book.
Right. But it could be something really disturbing that the teacher may have said that upsets the parent, but that's not done in front of the child.
Okay.
And you move that away. And what the child now understands is that there's a relationship that was built with the mom or dad, and therefore I need to fall in line.
Okay.
Okay.
Because at that age you need to learn to fall in.
You got it. You have to know the boundaries. Yes.
Okay.
That's a crucial piece. Understanding the boundaries in when to work and to operate. Everything that you do must be a deliberate act.
Okay.
You can't,
Intentionality.
it has to have some form of intentionality.
Okay.
It must be deliberate. As parents, we need to value the system, understand it, learn from it, adapt. There are traps. There are things that you need to know before going in. Educate yourself. Look for all the resources that are possible for your child. If you find that your child is not on grade level, there are a lot of resources. Sometimes, as principals, we're blamed for not having the resources, but it is available. But sometimes you will hear, no, I had to work, or, other things come up. But if you don't take the time
and make it a priority.
Yeah,
in Jamaica, we have a history of church involvement
right
in schools.
Right.
And Jamaica still has the record for having the most churches per square mile or square kilometer, however we're measuring it. So we know that Christian faith and principles are often very present in how schools are run. We have an idea that it is not so in America, because that in a lot of what is out there, the separation between church and state sometimes gets quite brutal. There is actually an ad that you sometimes see on cable. There's a man whose surname is Reagan, who has been running a campaign out of the Florida area about keeping church out of schools or state. It's something about, I see it occasionally, I'm like, people are still talking about that. Nevertheless, I just have to ask, when you talk about the principles of discipline and boundaries and so on, I'm hearing some of the kingdom principles coming out. How careful does one have to be, and how do you manage to get wholesome values at play in the environment without crossing the line?
It's difficult. It's a challenge. When you're working within a organization, you have to understand that you have to respect what the organization provides or outlines.
And that is a kingdom principle.
Correct.
Give unto Caesar.
You have to.
You have to respect.
There are issues that are of conflict to possibly one's belief, but it is also what you do in those settings as a principal is that I for me personally, let me just speak for me, I do not speak about politics and religion.
Okay.
In my setting.
In your job.
In my setting. I keep those two issues out. I've always been guided by my dad. Those are things that you'll never win.
That's
okay.
And even at home,
yes,
if the dinner is too big,
correct.
If it's a big family event,
correct.
You keep that out. So let me tell you that you have a fan online here,
yes,
who says, I don't agree with any church in any school, period. So this is Conrad. Hail up, Mr. Conrad.
So what happens is that if you look at how the schools are operated, as I said, it's through a policy and procedure, and I stick to that. I stick to the guidelines of the policies and the procedures. Some issues are brought up that are maybe in conflict with, let's say a teacher is uncomfortable about a certain topic, then he or she would come to me regarding that issue, and I will find an alternative route to not have that teacher do that particular study or lesson and find another person to do that for them. But I ensure that whatever the guidelines are for the educational practices, we have specific standards that we must follow. I will make sure that they're followed through.
So give me an example, please.
Without going into too much, sex ed. You know,
It's a hot spot.
it is a hot topic. There are certain things that are discussed. If the curriculum is available to all, you can hop on to any website and you can actually download the actual curriculum. That's one thing a lot of parents are not privy to, is to the fact that nothing is hidden from them.
We're going to talk about digital literacy.
So the entire curriculum is outlined as to what we are required to teach. The resources in which and the books that we use are all available. You teachers from our district do have access to look. Parents do have access to the curriculum to see exactly what it is. It doesn't mean that those are the basals. We call that the basals. It doesn't mean that the teachers don't have the freedom to bring other resources in to support the learning, and they do. Depending on what it is, they have to pass it through me so that I can approve it. But for the most part, they do have the opportunity to bring more additional resources to the table. But back to the question of whether or not if it's a conflict. The teachers cannot bring in their own personal views. Okay? If and when it does happen, I have the authority to discipline. Okay? So whether you are a Republican or an independent or a Democrat and you have strong feelings on certain issues and you feel that you want to persuade your group, you are not in a position to do that. Okay? You can bring information in and be objective. That's different. However, you are not in a position to influence. That is the parent's role and parent's role only. Okay?
Well, that's interesting.
Yes, that is.
It's the parent's role.
So what you do is, as a teacher, you serve up the menu of what is there. And
in accordance with the regulation.
Correct.
Because there are some things that are there in fine print which can't make its way into the main menu. If I get the meaning, if I understand what she's saying. It's not every variant of the that would make it onto the curriculum,
right.
You know.
So the question is, persons' philosophical beliefs will affect the way that they live their lives.
Are we talking about teachers now?
Yeah, we're talking teachers.
Yeah, teachers. Yeah,
correct.
Yeah, right. And so if a teacher is supposed to teach something, I alluded to that earlier, and they feel uncomfortable, they come to you and says, Madam Principal.
Correct.
I really, can you...
And I respect their position on that as a principal, and I will look up for other options.
Okay. So
and I'm still an educator,
which
and in some cases I go in and teach it myself.
Yeah, which might mean someone else would just teach that segment.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
As you can see.
So what have you gone in to teach?
I want to know. How big is your school?
I have 800 approximately. At its high point, about 810, and we're post-COVID, I guess you may say. We're about 710. 720.
Oh, one quick thing. How did you manage during COVID? You're in Florida. When school was open?
My district did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
I felt were on top of our game when it came to providing access to our students. I could walk you through. It would take hours here to describe.
You did a fantastic job.
I wouldn't say in all areas. Please understand that, but we try to be ahead of the game. Our students already had a 1-to-1 ratio with laptops.
Okay.
So that is a big lift when we had to shut everything down in March. Remember that period? And we had to go online. The issue was just the distribution of those laptops, getting them because they were in the classroom.
Okay.
So when our students left, they didn't take anything with them.
Okay.
So we had to ensure that they got the laptops in their hand. Not only that, we had to update the systems. To make sure that they were viable, they could use them at home.
Okay.
So they required some updating, but we had 1-to-1 ratios. So it was really quick,
So quick
within 1 week.
You were up and...
In 1 week.
Is that because of the principal that was there?
No. This is districts level now.
Oh, okay.
This would be a district. Yes.
Because leadership, I figured.
And that's the leadership under Mr. Runcie at the time.
Yeah.
Mr. Runcie is of Jamaican
descent. That is correct. So we were able to have that one-on-one immediately, and within 1 week, teachers were trained to work from an online system. We used Teams as our Microsoft Teams, and we were able to accomplish a lot in that 1 week. So spring break was used as a learning, training time frame, and many hours were spent. By Monday morning, after that break, we were up and running.
All right, This is a good point to take our 7:30 break, 8:30 break. Took the 7:31 already.
She was going back in time. I was wondering what was happening.
All right, we're just please stay with us. We'll be right back. Yes, just for the benefit of those who are participating in the show online, we are streaming on Lola 99 YouTube, also on the TMC at Best 100 FM YouTube channel. Occasionally, I think one of the stream has gone down. So if you miss a beat, just this morning you gotta be a little agile between one and the. And we are still on Twitch and I think on Facebook. We are on Facebook also, yes, and on Facebook, yes. But we are online for those who like to see the sunshine and a little bit of the Liguanea Club. And of course, you get to see Michelle, who. Pastor Percival is leading the charge with this one because he's a frustrated teacher. Are you frustrated?
No, I love teaching.
He loves teaching, but he is doing pastoring.
Yeah, you understand.
And then his wife's name is also Michelle. So I think talking to Michelle is a daily occupation for him. Continue, Pastor. Continue.
You have to get that one in.
Yes, man. Because Michelle is online, so she must notice that this interview is sparking a lot of interest for you.
When you spoke about values, that got me in terms of the fact that the values, you were talking about the secret sauce.
Yes.
What is the secret sauce?
Now you ask.
The secret sauce, as I shared before, would have been an earnest attempt by parents to do deliberate actions for the developmental process of their child. Therefore, they are the key. There is a pattern these days to push that responsibility off
on the school
to a lot of different avenues. Mm-hmm. The school could be one, the church,
the community,
mm-hmm. and not taking the responsibility, their God-given responsibility, to really be the framework for success.
The architect.
They are the architect. Please understand that at the end of the day, when you look at a child, they mimic their parents. I know we don't want to admit that.
Yes, but it is so true.
But you now invite a question. Those parents, and let me give it a foundation.
Okay.
Maybe a few weeks ago, when we did International Women's Day, and I'm so sorry you weren't here to celebrate with us or for us to celebrate you. Mm-hmm. When we did International Women's Day, one or two callers said, well, you must be doing, Men's Day. Of course, me now, I say every other day is International Man Day because them run things. But it caused me to look at a scripture in Leviticus. I think it's 29 verse 19 or 19 verse 29. Which spoke to honoring your daughters. It was saying, if you allow your daughters to turn to prostitution, the whole nation goes to prostitution, and iniquity fills the land. And then it ended by saying, and the land will vomit the people out, just as the land has vomited out the people whom you are replacing in Canaan. So I came back and started a discussion on the consequences of women being dishonored in communities and being treated in such a way that they are left with an inability to parent mm-hmm. and to nurture families and to build communities and societies that are wholesome. And we looked at the pattern. A woman who is abused, a young girl who is abused, may become an early mother, teenage mother, unable to parent that child goes into a repeat of the. And so by the time you look at it from a higher point, the society is showing the ill effects of abusing a young girl.
Correct.
Because, the womb and the cradle are at the heart of what women represent. So now you have children coming into school in a school environment that seeks to fulfill the needs of the child.
Right.
But the child's needs either were shaped inadequately or were not shaped at all.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
There you go. Absolutely. And so, but now you're in a society that is that would be expecting the parent, the home environment, to play a particular role in building and achieving success for that child. So I just want to know, how do you...
We're not trying to pass off responsibilities. The school has a major responsibility to educate the child. That's their main goal. They're also there to form and formulate, ideas and growth for that child. So we're not passing that off to anyone.
I don't like the passing off phraseology, because you were so right when you said parents have a God-given role.
They have a God-given role.
And then the school as an institution supports what they... Right.
So we want to make sure that the school understands that we have a responsibility to provide as much environment and fertile soil for growth. Right. All right. But I want to come back to that. I don't want to not answer your question, but I want to come back to the verse that you did share. That institutionally, I believe that the family structure over time, whether it's a mother or father, if that child has the value systems or understand to respect the value of education, I firmly believe that that is enough soil for us as educators to use it
to plant
something good. You know what I'm saying? So we know you're going with the idea of the broken family and the disintegration of the unit itself, the nuclear family system. And that is a whole different conversation that we,
get sidetracked.
Correct, because that is huge. That's a big factor to the society itself and what we have. But as educators, when we have a public system, we welcome everyone.
True.
It's an open door. We turn away no one.
Correct.
But if we can just get enough to start with, and what we're asking for, something to work with.
I hear that.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Because even with the discussion, whether it is single parent, both parent.
Correct. Because you can have both parents and still don't value education.
That's what I was about to say. That's the point I'm making.
Correct.
That if education is valuable, it is a single parent, a two parents, grandparent, it does sufficient to give that child the incentive to
Correct.
say,
and that's the secret sauce that I'm talking about. Yes, go ahead.
So anecdotally,
yes,
we are aware that many strategies and resources are put in place to close that gap where the parenting situation is not meeting expectations. Even in Jamaica, with like in the post-COVID era when students were unaccounted for, a strategy was deployed to go into communities and find the children because, parents weren't sending them forth and the children were not wandering in on their own. The lost sheep. So the Good Shepherd sent some seekers out. What are the kinds of strategies that you employ to help close that gap?
And we're trying still. So please understand that the first phase of the COVID shutdown, we had all of our boys and girls and teachers at home. So the first thing that we had to do would be to educate the staff how to work remotely. That was the biggest challenge as administrators we had to accomplish. Next, we did training with the parents, how to get the students online.
Okay.
So I held with several seminars, workshops online.
What was the turnout rate?
Sometimes very low. Sometimes I had 3. Sometimes I had 10.
But it kept growing.
and it kept growing.
Okay.
You just persist. You just have to be, persevere through it. But we also required our boys and girls to get on. Remember now, boys and girls were using the tool before
in
the classrooms. So because they had access to that information already, the crossover was not as heavy a lift for us as a district because the students were familiar with it. What we had issues, the issues were around logging in on time,
Oh, tell me about
remaining online,
not being distracted by the
not
games.
being exactly all right, and then the teachers themselves. What do we do for 6-7 hours? Online. You remember that's a long time being seated. So those are the challenges, setting up a structure for that to occur. Once we got over that hill, then we went into the phase of now providing direct instruction to students. And then we also had to meet the individual needs of certain students. So remember, we have small groups, we have push-in, pull-out services that we have to provide. We have OT, we have speech services that we also have to provide.
What is OT?
Occupational therapy. Okay,
so
they were correct. So
and all of those had to be translated
all those services
into an
had
online
to be
presence.
Correct.
All
right. So we had to find ways and means to get that done. All right. Some were successful, some were not as successful.
At least you had that trust to get it done.
We had to figure it out. Remember,
well, I would love to borrow from you the successful ones. so this would work it into the program that we are doing.
Because here in Jamaica, what happened? It was find every children at the yard, something like that.
And my log on rate was about 65. Please understand that. At my husband's location, they were close to like 90 something.
But that's high school?
No, that's elementary. So depending on the area, your location, the value systems again that are in place, and how the parents
the demographics
sees,
of the community steps in.
Correct. All right.
So we had the similar thing because
we had lower than 65, please.
we never had 65 like a teacher.
65 would have been cause for celebration.
Yes, like somebody would say, teachers are frustrated. A class of 30, 2 kids show up.
Correct. And we did several things. Please understand that we gave out hotspots to parents. We provided. We went knocked on doors into the community to find them, and I physically would take laptops to their school, to their homes, and say, "Here you are, use it."
Okay.
But
there is another thing, because even my son, because online.
All right, stop whispering.
My son online to be monitored. Parent is gone out to work.
Correct.
So that was a major thing.
And that's the value system I'm coming back to.
Yeah.
Because you have to put that in place as to the importance of what you're doing and the value that it has for your future. Because what happened, remember, the parent would be in the secondary room trying to get their work done in COVID time. And the students will be on the other line trying to get their work done. Now, remember, that parent still has to go from 8 o'clock to 4 working. That child is sitting on a soft seat or on their bed or on a hard seat for several hours.
Get up out of your bed.
Right. But remember, Teams has a piece to it. So the student's expectation would be to dress appropriately. And they had to be ready for learning. And we gave them breaks throughout the day.
Right. That's what's important.
So our kindergartners and our first graders, because they're 5 and 6 year olds, all right, were... We're
gonna have dance time now. Get up, move about.
No, we were serious. They had math, they had reading, they met all the requirements, but we were finished with school by 12:30, 1 o'clock for them because it was just too long a session.
It's
for them.
too long.
Yes.
Attention span, that kind
Correct.
of thing.
And so for that first year, now remember, we did not provide any testing for that first year. The second year of COVID, teachers were required to come back to work because remember, I live in the state of Florida. So they were required to come back to work over the period of time. We had different transitional phases. And so by December of that second year, we now had maybe 50% of our students returning to school.
Okay.
So we did exactly what you guys did. We did a rotational thing, not, where... not
one thing coming today.
No. Actually, not rotational, but we had the 6 feet distance in, and we try to put that in place. But students were required to come into school every day.
Okay.
Those who wanted their students to come in. So you would find that the 50% still remained at home because they were very afraid of COVID. And we also had approximately 50% that came in. Mostly our primary kids, which were the kindergartners and our first graders. They just, they were nearly 100% at that level.
Because
They needed it,
Oh,
correct. And we were very happy to have them back. So there were different phases to the transition, but I truly believe that closing that gap has still not yet occurred. We're still working on it.
Impact. Long term.
It's a long-term impact. And
What do you see? Look in your crystal
I,
ball.
I have students who are 2 to 3 years behind.
Oh.
Yes, I'm just going to be honest.
Which
And
is kind of 1 plus the actual 2 years of the pandemic.
Correct.
Right.
And if you think of our kindergartners, remember, if they got hit coming in that first year, they were impacted from the March, and the foundations are all gone. They're now sitting in 3rd grade right now. Would it be 3rd grade? Yeah, I think it's 3rd grade.
Looking puzzled. But let me ask you this, because I'm going to share something else from this report and just to cue you in. But how do you see technology playing a part, digital literacy playing a part in accelerating the pace, the adjustment pace for these children? Does it hold some potential?
It does hold some potential, but I know there's a big debate raging right now versus whether do we need to physically have teachers in the classroom versus them just learning on their own and doing what are called virtual learning. I personally am a strong proponent for teachers in the classroom. Nothing beats the human connection.
Because we're humans.
Nothing beats that relationship building whereby the student is supported and encouraged through a growth mindset to do more and to not give up and to persevere. A computer cannot do that, and so yes, if you are a talented student, you can accelerate your learning because you have gotten the skills to be able
if you
to.
do have the skills?
Then I think at that time, for me personally, I believe it needs to be a one-on-one, face-to-face.
So earlier we were talking a bit about artificial intelligence and some transhumanism
Yes.
and the extent to which you can use various sensory techniques to accelerate the implanting of information so that it sticks faster than when you are using the more organic route.
Can you share me data or share with me what were the results? Yes, I'm not familiar with.
Well, we were talking philosophically.
Got it.
Yeah,
Yes,
right.
We weren't having any data or anything like that,
No,
So
and I wouldn't want to overcomplicate the discussion with this at the moment.
Okay.
It's just understanding the extent to which man's manipulation of technology and greater understanding
enhance.
of biology and the chemistry of the human body can enhance the learning experience. So, for example, there are some things which if you taste it, touch it, and feel it, it is more memorable for you than if you read about it.
Correct.
That's just anecdotally, let's use that as the first level of understanding. So we're not there yet where virtual reality replaces the classroom.
Okay.
And you can have a multidimensional sensory experience so that learning something is a whole different
So, educators will let you know that there are different modalities to learning. And
welcome to the conversation.
And it's not a one-size-fit-all.
Correct.
But the visual impact that is, I believe at this place where we are right now, it is crucial for teachers to be versed in technology to provide the crossover into that world whereby students can delve and learn more about it and even bring things back to the classroom that the teacher may not be aware of. Right now, for my staff, we're working to be a Microsoft school.
Okay.
And I am having 100% of my teachers, including myself,
Certified.
be certified. And
is that in collaboration with Microsoft?
correct. Yes. And so that's my initiative as a school to be. We are an incubator school at this time, and we're going through that process to be a Microsoft certified school. With that being said, we are learning more about what technology can provide for students in the classroom. However, the modalities in which one child will learn from will be very tactile in one sense, and in another sense, another student, it can be visual, and it can be auditory. So because of all the different learning styles, the teacher needs to come readily available to provide those pieces to the student. And you cannot walk into a set. Every great teacher comes in understanding that within seconds they should be able to define what is your learning
style for each. Yes.
So do you actively test for that in your system, or because the teacher?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So what I'm saying, so the teacher is equipped with the tools.
Yes.
But then do you do an administrative test to determine?
When you say the test, you mean for each and individual, definitely.
Yeah, you do that because some.
So that's the teacher's job.
It is the teacher's job.
That's just saying.
It is a part of it.
A good teacher must be able to accomplish
immediately
that,
and it shouldn't take 2 weeks to figure that out.
Right. Okay. Yeah. You got to place each child that's under your care.
They go through it, and I'm saying, okay, Johnny's that thing. So in terms of my lesson plan,
correct.
I've got to do that.
Correct.
So I'm incorporating all the different.
So no child is left behind. I want to read something from.
Do you mind me just?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm a math teacher. When I walk into a teacher's classroom, it takes me less than 2 minutes to know whether or not if that teacher prepared the lesson. Less than 2 minutes.
In any subject or in math?
Math.
Yeah.
Period.
Yes.
I can walk in and I can tell whether or not if you are meeting the needs of the students. The reading and the ELA and other areas, yes, I am still versed, but not as quick.
With the math.
But the math, I can tell whether or not if you took your time to prepare. So a talented teacher understands the needs of their student within a few minutes of working with them one-on-one, and then begin to prescribe and then work out a plan of action
to bring that
child into the
right place.
Correct.
Do they use teaching assistants in the classroom?
It depends. So we do offer teacher assistants in classrooms that need it. Usually those rooms are or ESC special needs.
Okay.
And if the funding is there, which is it's hardly ever there, but sometimes if it's within the scope of the school and they have the extra fund, then we can hire a few more.
So would a parent be, is it possible for a parent to provide an assistant for a child it has to be the state that meets that need? Okay.
Correct. District.
Yeah, the district,
So,
sorry.
yeah. That's interesting.
So I couldn't send my child with his 2 caregivers.
No.
They would have to sit outside this classroom.
There are some, I don't want to get into it, but there are some
exemptions?
Yes. There were a few depending on the challenges that the student provides to the classroom, the disruptions. They have RBAs that they can, behavior techs that are provided, and they can be private or public.
RBAs are what?
They're just behavior people who are there to
rehabilitative behavior
registered behavioral assistants.
Okay,
I can make up a meaning for it.
That's what it is?
No, it's
not registered.
It's missing my thoughts at this moment, but it's pretty much therapists who are in the classroom to assist with the behavioral pieces of that student.
Okay.
Because the behaviors are preventing the student from their education.
Okay.
Learning practices.
All right, we're up on a break. I'll read the section to you in the break, so we can be ready for it when we return.
No problem.
Please stay with us. We'll be right back with our guest, Dr. Michelle. I'm kidding. Michelle Allison. Welcome back. I tell you, I'm starting to think that the chatter during the break is more exciting than what happened.
We spoke about management in the break. We spoke about management in the break.
I missed
yes, and somebody said, I know what you're talking about. Management.
He's not.
Oh dear. I'm feeling like, did I get talked about while I was away?
No, you didn't know. We're talking about Mr. Allison.
Oh, okay.
It's Michelle's husband.
All right. I didn't get to read it to you. Everybody will hear it. The Jamaica education system faces 2 major challenges. The need to train students to function in a technologically based economy and the need to help solve its catastrophic problem of crime, including unusual levels of violence toward females. You were going to make mention of that scripture. That's your cue. Children and persons with non-traditional sexual and gender orientations. Hence, the curriculum requires as much attention to social and emotional learning as to the STEM subjects, so as to engender respect for human life and a sense of responsibility and civility in human relations. The part I want to focus on is, oddly, I want to talk about the emotional learning.
Okay.
Social and emotional learning.
I think COVID has brought to light the need for us to have that human connection. And the isolation period has given us full insight to how relevant it is to have that connection. And because that was somewhat taken away from us, we are now in a period where we see the after effects of it. And there are a lot of repercussions that have occurred. Now, again, I have to share with you that I'm at the primary or the elementary level. I believe that a lot more are shown visually or physically at the upper grade levels.
Yeah.
And not to say that the younger students are not grappling with it or not wrestling with it. But what we do know is that what I saw for myself, boys and girls who were desperate to come back to school. Desperate. They were coming through those doors and hugging, and just they missed coming to school, missed their friends, missed playing with them, socializing with them. And because of that, there was a need for us as educators to really put into place what I call social and emotional learning curriculum in the classrooms. Yeah. So with that being said, on the district level, we were mandated to provide that to our students.
There was a very interesting soundbite from a little Jamaican female student. She said she would come out early when school resumed. She would arrive early and just stand and watch the children coming in, because it was just, I found it captured my imagination that a child, she looked like she may have been about 10 or maybe about 10.
It was healing for her.
And she said it was just so satisfying to see the children streaming in. That was what she wanted to see, to know that that part of her life had resumed. So I get it. I get it.
And they were crying.
Yeah.
They were, wanted to come back in. The only group that probably did not know what school looked like or felt like would be our kindergartners.
Yes, who hadn't got any at all.
Gotten any experience. So the challenge to bring them back in the fold midstream was difficult. But for those who were already a part of the system, you could see even our behavior students, what we would consider to be behavior students, fell in line. No issue, because they didn't want to go home.
Happy to be back.
Happy to be back.
We had a guidance counselor from one of our listeners who works
probably staying now in the inner city.
In which case we say good morning. I think it is the Edward Seaga Primary School. That's the new name of the school.
Oh, it's not the Denham Town anymore.
It was renamed, I think. But he mentioned that one of the challenges he saw, children playing, and the tolerance and the patience had disappeared somewhat, and usually they would see the teacher and not resort to profanity, but that boundary had disappeared during the time out of school. And so I guess everyone must be looking at strategies to rebuild those boundaries as quickly as possible.
Especially in the middle and high school. Again, it's not in my area, but I work with my coworkers. That's an issue. There's an uptick with fighting. There, just how to socially respond to others. Those boundaries have not been defined over a couple of years and have been eliminated. And so we have to reestablish some. We all like boundaries, believe it or not. We don't.
Well, that's
think we
how
do.
You enjoy freedom.
Correct.
Who said it? I think it was your husband who said it.
Correct. And because of that, they're walking back into a system that is restrictive, and they have not been in that system conditioned for some time, and now you're seeing the pushback. And so it's trying to get that melting pot to work, you know, and depending on what area you're coming from.
I just had an insight that there's an expression that many of us use. I love to use it myself, but it is actually quite racially charged. You say they went native.
In some cases.
They went native?
Native.
Yes.
That's an expression, but it is racially charged.
Correct.
To return to a state of nature assumes that a state of nature is backward, prehistoric, uncivilized. You know, they hear, like I always say, that if you leave men alone for a long time, they go native. They don't shave, they don't bother to, you know.
I am staying numb on that one. I am sure we'll get an uptick with calls on that one.
We didn't go native.
Back to just
nails.
being in the classroom, that I share with you that the challenges are there, just to provide that structure to the students. And
structure is so important.
Correct. But I think a lot of us are not realizing that a lot of our students had losses. Family loss.
Yes.
And we're missing that piece. There's a lot of grieving that occurred within families.
Or that didn't get done.
Exactly. And the support systems were not there for those family members and to say the goodbyes. Remember, they lost grandparents, they lost fathers. I had in my own setting where we had kids, we lost students, and we also lost parents. So, you know, we've not dealt with that.
You're right about that.
You know, and so you're looking at bringing in a group of individuals where the family structure in many cases have been dismantled, you know, for some. And so they're now living with a cousin or an auntie because the mom is gone or the dad is lost.
Or the grandma who was part of the extended family.
That's a very sobering thought.
So the SEL is really around how do you support those students.
So it's way more critical now than ever
critical.
before. So I'm going to share with you a conclusion out of our own study again.
Okay.
Emotionally unstable, disrespectful, educationally disengaged children cannot learn STEAM. Well, you know, STEAM, science, technology.
Could you repeat that again?
Emotionally unstable, disrespectful, educationally disengaged children cannot learn. Let's just stop at learn. This is a conclusion they came to. Say, however, the good news from a wealth of educational research is that the teaching and learning of STEAM education and again back to social.
So STEAM is science, technology, engineering, art, and math, versus STEM, which eliminates the arts. So that's when we use the acronyms, I just want to make sure everyone.
It's the same.
It's clear. That's why
Thank you.
I have to keep reminding her. You need to define.
But I have Michelle, and she's done it beautifully.
No,
I don't try to do all of it myself. So
Michelle is dying with laughter.
So this is the conclusion that children who are emotionally disabled, if we would call it that way, cannot learn. That's what they've said.
I think that's a broad stroke.
Go into it.
Because in resiliency,
I think the key word is disengaged.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think the key word is disengaged. So, but to just put a paintbrush and just to paint it, you know, flat out is a disservice to our students who are struggling, because through the arts, through the STEM, technology, you can re-engage those students and bring them to a point whereby I
think the point they're making is that you have to re-engage them in order for them to learn.
Correct. The key
is why they've said here that the social and emotional learning is a critical component to get the students into learning the substantive disciplines.
So let me ask you a question, and I'm going to throw this back at you. What is considered social and emotional learning?
In Jamaica?
Yes.
Well, we started with the definition of the difficulties in the Jamaican environment, the evidence of violence towards women, children, and a level of dysfunction in the society, which has an impact on the minds of the young. And here, remember I'm reading from the report.
I got it. Because in my mind, because I want to make sure that we're on the same page.
Out of your experience.
Yeah, because social emotional learning defined at the primary or elementary level is providing support systems for students to be emotionally adequate, to be emotionally
able to
what's the word I'm looking for? But engage,
relate to persons,
relatable, right?
Yeah,
and how to
how
to relate
but I don't
to
think
another.
It differs here.
Oh, okay.
I don't think it differs
okay. So
here.
we put in practices and curriculum to support that, which is great appropriate. So, for instance, let's say you have a 5th grader. The conversation will be what do we do for tolerance, and so we can now provide miniature lessons or mini lessons on that area of tolerance, and we describe it. We do role models, we do acting, we act it out, we do video, we do different things on it. While in the kindergarten level, we may do such thing as working with a friend. How do you line up in the line,
waiting your turn,
yeah. And no, bringing those pieces back in there and not taking them for granted. So the question about whether or not if a child is emotionally not ready or disturbed, or what's defined by that article, the key would be the disengagement piece and the teacher's role in using strategies to re-engage the child.
Yeah. Well, then they mention a number of things: emotionally unstable, disrespectful, educationally disengaged. But from what you're saying, an emotionally unstable, disrespectful child can still learn STEAM.
Correct.
They can.
Correct.
As long as they're engaged.
I just want to introduce something that you brought up: the whole impact of trauma on our young people,
right?
On our children in terms of how they learn and so on. And you have said a lot of them are still grieving.
They're still going through their grief. They're watching it on TV.
Yes.
And if they don't have a relative that it's nearby, they're still seeing
somebody who they know,
correct,
or some friend.
Correct. They're still experiencing the change that occurred to their lives, wearing a mask, having to isolate, walking 6 feet apart from their friends and their family members, not being able to see grandma, not being able to see granddad, not being able to go to those, the supermarket, the manner in which they had to before, not being able to go to the movie theater. All their lives have been changed upside down, and we ourselves as adults had to make that adjustment. What about those students, and how we can't take it for granted that it's just okay.
Right.
They're going through the phases and changes of learning to do the adapt. They're adapting to what they have right now.
And some people have alluded to the fact that the impact of this pandemic, we truly have not begun to see the impact on children. And when you said what you said, they saw me go back.
Yeah.
Because I know for a fact, having to work with a lot of these children, young people, it really has impacted them. They've not fully begun to express what it has done to them as individuals. So the whole thing of the trauma of the pandemic on them we can't even begin to measure it.
Correct. Again, that will need a psychologist,
and
count, those who are trained in that area to provide us with that kind of assistance. But as educators, we teach them to cope. We give them strategies and the SEL are coping mechanisms that we provide for our students.
Okay.
So, but I just want to, when I walk into a setting, I don't look at a student and say because he's traumatized, because he, all the different variations that he can't learn. Correct. We have to find different avenues in which to engage that student.
Because they're resilient.
And find some way in me. There must be something that we can get to provide access to get in.
But that would be a part of the SEL.
Not necessarily.
No, you mean
because
some other strategy that.
Remember, teachers have a curriculum to teach. They have
you gotta get it done.
They have 6 hours within a day.
Get it done.
They have to get it done.
I've asked the engineer in the studio to play a song for you.
Sure.
You won't hear it.
Okay.
Because unless we make some other arrangement here. But I've asked him to play Taurus Riley's "She's Royal."
That's in tribute to Michelle.
In tribute to Michelle.
Allison. Okay.
So, but Yes, perhaps I should get that done before I ask you the next question, because one of the reasons I've chosen the song for you, aside from the fact that you're an African queen, is because teachers everywhere do yeoman service and never get enough of a reward. And some of the things we've talked about here has highlighted the fact that whether you're in America, which is a more comfortable, economically a more comfortable environment than in Jamaica, you go beyond the call of duty to get the job done, and you're parenting while being teacher and the many hats that you wear. So that is the Morning Connections tribute to you.
Thank you.
But I do want to hear when we come back how teachers feel about their emoluments and the conditions of work, and is it any different for you than it is for our Jamaican teachers. So She's Royal is warming up in studio, and we'll take a short. All right, thank you very much for staying with us, and welcome back to the Morning Connection. Percival and I have been talking to Michelle Allison. She is a daughter of the soil, Jamaican woman living and working in Florida. She's a principal of an elementary school there, and we've been pulling from her the learning, the skills, the experience that she's garnered working in the United States of America. She's only like 90 minutes away, but can I tell you, I paid a tribute to her with Taurus Riley's song, which is over 10 years old at the very least, and it was the first time she was hearing it.
I'm so sorry.
So I don't know what's going on in Florida, but we've got to send a reggae mission up there to Broward County.
Well, you're good enough.
Why?
A reggae mission.
This sounds like something, right?
Well, just for clarification,
Yes.
as he had shared before about management, okay,
Yes.
that my husband is very firm, and therefore
He's in charge of music.
He's in charge of music.
I'm
And it's mostly Christian and gospel music that is being played in my house.
So we have to get some of the, what's his name? Downswell?
Kevin Downswell.
Kevin Downswell.
Yeah, real Jamaican
Pastor has
flavor.
introduced me to some
Okay.
serious- No bounty killer.
or we could introduce our husband to Burrs Hammond and Popcorn.
Oh yes, that's true.
Yes, that song which is.
Yeah, he's familiar with those.
You're familiar with those
So as
songs?
my
All right.
support system, he ensures that I'm well covered.
He covers you well because it's what we call good management, right, Bossy? Yes, sir.
All right. Well, management has spoken. I have to beg management's forgiveness for then introducing you to some radical new lyrics.
I enjoyed it. Thank you so much. I appreciate the tribute.
Yes, thank you. It was given with love and
Definitely.
and
it was well received.
respectful-
Thank you.
My heart is warmed. So I wanted to turn your attention a little bit to just sharing with us what the concern about working conditions and payment emoluments.
Mm-hmm.
How are the teachers in your district, or the workers in your school district? Our teachers are always under pressure, doing more than.
I think there is a misunderstanding as to how much work is put in to educate a child. When a teacher walks into a classroom, it looks easy, but there are hours and hours of preparation that has been done prior to that child walking through that classroom. Actually, it's hours on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is a misunderstanding that all she or he does is just open the book, read from it, and the child will learn, and your day's done by 1:30, 2 o'clock, and you're home for the rest of the day doing absolutely nothing else.
Who sets the pay scales? Is it the board?
It is the board.
The elected board.
Correct.
Are professional teachers eligible for election to the board? Anyone can go on?
No, it doesn't work that way. So remember, the school board is an elected position. So you would have to vie for it And
all right. So let me rephrase that. Could I, as a retired teacher,
yes,
put myself up?
That is correct.
So the board can be populated with persons who have actual knowledge and
correct.
experience
And it
of
does.
what goes on in the classroom.
And it has, at this current time, past teachers on there.
And still you say there is a misunderstanding about the level of effort that goes into...
So when I say misunderstanding, I'm going to say probably from parents, from the community itself, not from the board. So I think the board really understands the amount of work and effort that is put into a classroom. And remember, there is a support system, the operational pieces that that have to be in place, getting the school ready. You know, there are many aspects to getting a child into that classroom setting. But let's focus on just the instructional part of it, which will be the teacher.
Yes, because I am curious about payment and working conditions for teachers.
So the payment structure is developed by the board and the BTU, okay, which is the union group for Broward, okay. They're the ones that negotiate over a period of time, and that is placed and that's put into place. I can frankly say that the teachers are not happy with that pay structure because of the amount of work and time that is they're put into the classroom, and they're not necessarily paid at the highest rate compared to, let's say, someone from New York. All right, so
what you're saying, so even within a district or even in a state, you might have some teachers in one school district being paid more.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. So Miami-Dade will be different from Broward. That will be different from Palm Beach. That will be different from Osceola counties. They're all different ranges of pay.
Are you serious?
Yes. They're all different.
Even though it's the same curriculum that they're basically...
They're not the same. Every district provides sets their own
so
curriculum.
What about the common... Obama had introduced the common... What is it? Common... curriculum, what's it? Something like that.
So you're talking Common Core?
Yes, and
that's very complicated. No, it really wasn't created by Barack. It was created by the Republican governors. That was initiated through a coalition of governors initially, and then he took upon the pieces from it and created what was now known as the Common Core. But the initial parts of it were pulled from other...
So it's a bipartisan effort.
It was, but it's not shared that way. It's not related. So I'm not going down that political path.
I just asked him.
If one were to do the real study on it, it was actually initiated by governors who felt the curriculum was not strong enough and met the needs of the students. And so therefore Common Core is in place at our level. But remember, our state changed the Common Core to what's called FSA. So Florida State Assessments. Okay, so it's FSA for us in Florida.
So was that a change in name or a change in character?
Great question. I think I will say a little bit of both.
A little bit of both.
If you were to compare the Common Core standards compared to what the FSA standards, there are very little changes.
Okay.
So I would say this could have been more of a political statement than if anything.
A rebranding.
Correct. But there
impact.
are modifications that in there that one will say it's not the same because things were definitely modified in there, but a lot of the core pieces remained.
So the core, it is what it is, core.
All right. So therefore, what you're saying, within a state, you have different pay scales based on what
the district sets the pay scales.
Oh wow!
Right. So my question for you, you've identified that teachers are not all happy with where it is set.
They're underpaid.
They're underpaid. Well, that's
a universal thing around the world, except in some countries where they have focused on it and they've said, we want our best teachers at elementary.
Correct.
And so on.
If you think about it, we're the ones that are educating your child. We are the foundation to what is going to happen to the future. Why not put the money where the difference can happen for future?
For the greatest
impact. And therefore a teacher, as I would always tell my hubby, is God's little secret.
So you're a secret to your husband?
God's secret.
Okay, God's secret.
God's little secret. Teachers, God's secret, because it provides an avenue in which you can influence, you can touch, you can inspire, you can change.
Okay, all right. So
on the emolument question,
yes,
I want to be
sure.
I want to be educated on this aspect of it. for Jamaica, it's always a question of priority. What is the immediate need that has to be met, and it is prioritizing resources against a lack of adequate resources. What would you say accounts for this disconnect between value and payment?
I frankly don't know. I'm going to be honest with you. We come to the table each year. We could wrestle with all of the pieces, and still we walk away with not much.
Okay.
And it's not a question of resources. It's not that the
question.
state doesn't have the funds or...
Sometimes we get into our own way, and we get things too complicated. And I feel that if an earnest attempt was done to listen to what the teachers are saying at the ground level as to how to make change, a lot more could be done.
Make change
How
in terms
marked-
of remuneration or change in terms of general system?
I think parents are frustrated that they're not seeing the level of growth that they would like to see out of their child. So there's some frustration on the parents, and that they want to see their child be the best. They're not seeing that piece.
Okay.
The teachers on the other end are saying, we are stressed, we are overworked, we're underpaid.
Right.
And the two are not really coming together to really... They're trying. There are resources there for them to come together, but what policies are there to really make that
happen?
Make it happen? So the question about how to make the greatest impact in a classroom is the teacher.
Okay.
The teacher will make
Leadership.
It's the greatest impact. That person is right in that classroom to make the greatest change. You have to feed that.
Okay.
You have to nurture that.
Right.
You have to value that.
Okay.
All right. Once the teacher feels valued, feels supported, happy, they would probably go more above and beyond even what they're doing at this time.
Okay.
But when you look at your paycheck and you still can't even pay your rent or your mortgage or buy a car, you
So
get...
have the same issues there as here. Okay. All
I
right.
have teachers who are
that's-
making...
Yeah, so now I've identified that it's not scarcity of resources,
In
which
some
is often
cases.
the case in Jamaica. We just can't,
The will to do what is right.
But it sounds to me that there may also be a disconnect between the teacher's estimation of value and the parents' appreciation of value.
Correct.
So,
And again, I am sitting from only one angle, so please understand that. There are many different viewpoints to this topic. But in my... just seeing, with my group of teachers, we have teachers who just love to teach. If they get $1 or not,
they show
they're
up.
there.
They show.
Okay.
They still
They show up. But there are also teachers who really need that paycheck to pay their bills, to support their own families. So how do we keep the retention rate of those teachers? Empower
and these are
them.
good teachers.
These are good
who
teachers.
Want us to remain in the system.
Correct.
Yeah.
We have to provide them with adequate payment so that they can feel that they can remain in this job, because the top talented ones sometimes leave us and go off into the private sector because they can find better pay
In private schools.
or in private schools or private sector,
Right.
period, just
Yeah.
finding another job
Doing
elsewhere.
Other things.
So
So let me ask you
Yes.
now. How marked is the difference between what teachers would like to get and what they're actually getting?
I
don't know what it is in
That's
Jamaica,
a great
by the
question.
way.
I don't know
But-
either. I think that they want is a basic minimum wage that if they go home, they don't have to worry about their
Livable
basic
What
wage.
we're calling the livable wage.
the
A
livable
livable
wage,
wage. Yeah,
livable
okay.
wage, a livable wage, and I could be wrong, but that could be anything over 50,000
US per
US
year, per annum.
in the state of Florida.
So okay. So can you just tell us what are some of the pay scales that you know for somebody who goes to teachers college, who goes to university and is trained as a teacher, coming out at entry level,
It's mid 40s,
40,000,
mid 40s, 45, 47,000. I think
Okay.
it's somewhere in that range.
and and in
Depending
your,
if you have a master's versus a doctorate versus a bachelor's. So you have a minimum expectation to walk in with a bachelor's.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, the highest is principals. No,
So I'm an administrator.
oh, no, I'm just wondering because I know here because we have 100 and I think in the high schools more primary schools, which is where you are be at. So you're saying, so you begin at 45, depending on whether you have a bachelor's, a master's, or a doctorate.
Right.
What would be, in your own estimation? This is just your
The high end of a teacher?
Yes.
I
To
have my
start entry level.
No, the highest you can walk in is that. That's it.
No, but I'm saying, you said they're still underpaid even there. So what would you expect for somebody who's going to be teaching to get when they begin teaching?
I think in any setting, you are always going to have differences as to what a starting salary will be.
Right.
So we need to come to a conversation with our livable wages.
Okay.
Okay. What is deemed livable wages for a husband and wife and 2 kids?
Right.
Okay. A starting salary for most would probably be in the 50s.
Okay.
I would assume. I'm assuming now. Okay. So if that is the case, then that would mean that they are looking for anywhere between a $5,000 to $10,000 increase on their rate.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I want to share with you some of the feedback that you're getting online.
Sure.
Well, I think I shared with you before what Earl Brown said about the court sending black youths to the church and those kids leaving as university graduates, which was a counterpoint to how religion is treated in schools. But he went on to say that his church had a school from kindergarten to high school. Parents from Papua New Guinea send their unruly youths to the school run by his church, and a couple of those youths ended up being aircraft pilots. Which is exactly to your point, that even the disrespectful, unsociable ones can still be brought in stream.
Yes.
And then Taki says, and this is Taki Lemkwa, I got the name right. He approved a point that was being made where the nurturing and upbringing of girls are concerned. And I know you want to get back to that. Eventually, the ethics come from the mother, and it affects the nature of the circumstances, mother being first source.
Okay.
So I know I want you to table that. But he then went on to say that it's great listening to your guest. He too was in a school system as an assistant teacher, substitute teacher, prior to the COVID crisis and up to the lockdowns, and he agrees with you on the points that you have made. Well, he also added that one has to make sure to incorporate a side job or jobs to make it so.
That's a reality.
It is many of the teachers are moonlighting.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Is that something you encourage? Does the school have any input in it at all?
I do. So where I am, my setting is considered to be a Title I school. So a Title I school means I have a high number of free and reduced rate students who qualify for free and reduced lunch. So students do purchase lunch at school, and based on that percentage, if you're over 50% of your students, you're entitled to what's called a Title I grant.
Okay.
All right, under the federal program.
Okay.
So with that, I get additional resources to support those students within the classroom setting, provide additional teachers in the classroom, and at the same time, the students get either free lunch,
free or subsidized
right?
lunch.
But I also offer camps. So I provide after-school camps. I provide weekend camps, and teachers are able to pick up additional funding from there. So that's
okay.
Yeah.
Innovation.
Yes. Yes.
So what were your thoughts on that Leviticus scripture? It seemed something caught fire in your mind.
No, I don't want to sound too,
Levitical.
Correct. I believe the structure of the men. I believe the males have
A role to play.
Have a major role to play in the structure of the community. And when that role gets moved and it's shifted, and the women are now placed in a position where they're now taking up that role and have to do some of the leadership that is the divine will of the males to begin with. I'm not saying that women are not appropriately adequate to do it. What I'm saying is that I do believe that it requires
Partnership.
Proper balancing.
A proper balancing of the roles. And when the men are in that specific task or are able to do, then the women will pick up something else. I'm not saying that we should.
You're talking about STDs?
What?
The women will pick up. Because we were talking about women being turned into prostitution, and leading to the decay of
the decaying is just
a result.
As a result of when we have the nuclear system dismantled, and when we have to pick up the mantle and do things. And I'm not saying we're to be blamed. That's not what I'm sharing here, but their role, their structures that we have. And I think we have responsibilities that we do have. So, again, the value systems can be in the home environment, whether single, whether it's married, whether it's the grandparents or an aunt or an uncle, whoever it is that establishes that leadership role and outlines the responsibilities to the others within that setting, and how they respond to it is crucial to making sure that that child has the best foundation to move forward. It's not guaranteed, because you know of many settings of having the same mother and father and seeing boys and girls look quite different. You know what I'm saying? You can have 5 or 6 within that household, same mom, same father, and they're all they're all over the place. All over the place. So again,
and I
want to pick up on something you said, because you mentioned the nuclear family.
Yes.
And it immediately sort of triggered another thought, that the nuclear family is defined in a particular way. But then you went on to talk about the role of the extended family.
Correct.
The network of aunts and grandparents and so on.
Correct.
Which is very much in keeping, borrowing from another culture.
Right.
It takes a village to raise a child.
That is correct.
And many times the absence of the village is even more painful.
Correct.
So some of the socio-economic disrupted by natural causes that have nothing to do with
the social and learning aspects. You can have that grandmom or the granddad who comes in the setting and support the child who may have had a bad day. It doesn't have to be the mom or dad, or someone in the village or someone in the neighbor, and say, brush it off. Tomorrow's a new day. Tomorrow's a better day.
How much of that do you see the role of extended families having an impact in your environment?
Yes.
That's an interesting thing.
It's a very interesting question.
You spoke about your context.
Yeah. So the demographics of my location lends itself to that. I see that outplaying in my Hispanic population.
That's what made me ask you.
Yes, and so that is crucial. You do see those pieces coming through. And so you allow, but we have maybe grandmother, grandfather days, where the parents are allowed to come on campus, and so we can see, the other family members who are the supporting members within that household.
The vibrancy of the community.
Correct.
We're big on community involvement.
So it doesn't have to be mommy or daddy. It just has to be within the setting itself, that if mommy and daddy are absent, the expectation is you're going to come in. You're not going to be on the street ramping. You're going to get your work done, get it all accomplished, leave it at the side table when mommy and daddy comes in later on tonight, or grandma.
So
they can glance over it. We can celebrate, put a check mark, yes, even if you can't read it. You understood it was done. Did you check your book? Did you have your lunch set up for tomorrow morning? Is your uniform ready?
I mean, even in Jamaica, there are many of us who don't have the experience of parents sitting to supervise homework.
Correct.
But parents make sure a structure is there.
Exactly.
You have your lunch money.
That's correct.
Your uniform is ready. Your books are. And they generally know that you're on point. So you feel like someone cares.
And that's all that really
Yeah, that's
All right,
true.
we're almost at the end of the show. We've
Okay.
not taken any calls this morning because we've just monopolized Michelle.
I am so sorry.
That's
No,
all
but that's
right.
all right, but you
We
have been a
indulged.
wealth of information.
We indulged ourselves this morning.
Okay.
Thursday is Indulgence Day for the TMC crew. We come here, we eat delicious food, courtesy of JD's
my
Urban
Lord.
Pub. We enjoy the outdoors, and typically we have a guest at the table, and we have extended conversations. And I'm grateful that you were able to participate in it with us this morning. I want us to wrap up with just a little conversation on conflict resolution within the school environment, and maybe if you
With staff or with parents or with students?
parents, that's what, with parents, with staff. You know, we've had things like stabbings in our class, in our schools,
Yes, recently I know there was a situation that
student
occurred.
die over
Yes.
some guard ring conflict.
Yes.
We've had situations where the teacher peel back and smack the student, and the
Yes.
parent come and want to fight the teacher, and so on. I very colorful. But I just, what's your experience? And then, we
So
can
we
say
have
our
safe
goodbyes.
schools that are, that's a term that we use, safe schools. And we have protocols, we have guidelines in which to follow for conflict, conflicts resolution. I don't know if it's always resolved. But let's talk about safety first. It's more on the guidelines of protecting the staff, protecting the students while they're on your campus. So there's safety pieces that are in place, such as in the past, we used to have an open door policy. Those things are now closed. The gates are now manned. The doors have what's called single points of entry. So therefore, no one can get on once you get on the campus, there's only one office, one area that you can enter. That you have to transit. There is, I don't know if you've been watching the news, we're going to have WAND.
Yes.
Metal detectors, wands being utilized at certain levels. So there is a direct effort on our part as the district to provide as much safety pieces. It's not perfect, but it's their intent to keep it as safe as possible.
Any gun incidents in your school?
No. At the
thank God.
elementary level, the answer is no.
There was a small child that brought a gun to school.
Right.
It was reported, and
Correct.
I don't think he was 10.
Correct. So, sometimes if the parent leaves the weapons
He's just bringing
unattended,
it for show and tell.
correct, unmanned,
Sure and tell.
Yes,
you know,
well, I mean,
but we have, I don't know if you're familiar with the incident that happened several years ago with the Stillman Douglas.
Oh, yes.
So because of those pieces, because of the tragedy that occurred and the trauma that has happened to family members, we've been working very diligent as a unit, as a district to try to keep our district as safe as possible. And many changes have occurred within our setting. So we have armed guards right now at each setting. So we are required to have an armed guard at our school site.
Okay.
And so that armed guard is one to oversee
security
on
on
campus
Yeah.
with
The police.
with monitors. Now, depending on your city, you may get additional support from the police. So
Okay.
each city will provide additional support,
Okay.
but we are provided with an armed guard, and we're called monitors.
Yes.
Campus monitors.
Okay. I want to end on a very cheerful note. What is the thing that you have enjoyed most about being an educator and working in a foreign country? You still call it foreign country when you're
This
here?
is my home.
This
is
in
home.
your new home.
Yeah. What I enjoy
The thing
most,
you've enjoyed the most.
I've always said it's God's little secret, and it
You
is.
enjoy the fact that you're God's little secret.
I'm not God's secret. It's God's secret to inspire and touch lives.
Okay. All right.
And so to see women, men leave our system and become the best. My husband has had graduates who have gone to MIT, they've gone to Harvard, and seen them coming back and just saying thank you for for
Inspiring me.
inspiring me to be the best. I mean, they're working at top jobs, you know.
So it's very gratifying.
Oh, it's extremely gratifying.
I want to share with you what one of our listeners has said. I think he's, you know, he's been an educator. I think he's a professor of some sort.
Okay.
Taki says, for me, it was a great experience encountering the different schools from pre-kinder, elementary, high schools to the alternative secondary and high schools. So, I mean, that is one of the jobs that I think rates very highly in terms of satisfaction.
Yes, because I have an autism
Even
program at my school, so I oversee autism for my area. And it is just an amazing feeling to watch those boys and girls just develop into their own and begin to get life skills, just life skills. It's just
all right. So this is where I say thank you to all those who joined us online, on air. Thank you very much for sharing with us. You know, a part of the journey is learning from others and appreciating the diversity in our experiences. We're going to close the show with Strength of a Woman. 2 tribute songs. I think you've been a favorite on the show. We've had some real stellar females join us on this program, and I'm glad to see that my friend Michelle is one of them. Let's say hello to Stacy. I hope she listened to the last minute. Oh, let me hear that again.
Big up.
Big up. Real Jamaican, yeah, this time come back out.
Yeah, we big up Stacy. Thank you back at the studio, Lloyd. Thank you for taking us through the paces. And here, Mr. Engineer and Producer, in his Best 100 FM shirt, my own protector and one-man army.
Yes.
And Pastor Percival, thank you so much. Over there, Eden.
Management.
And Maestro. Next time, we'll try and have a chat with Mr. Allison himself, who is an educator, living abroad too, but he's a musician of no mean order. I'm hoping that I can at least hear something that he has produced. When he comes on this program, he will have to share some music with us. Have a great weekend, everyone. This is the Morning Connection, signing off and going to have breakfast. Thank you to the Liguanea Club, to Carmen's Corner and Carmen's Collection, and to JD's Urban Pub for hosting us this morning.